Hare Krishna, Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Is the ban on the Rtvik system of initiations legitimate? This is the question we will look at today. ISKCON law 6.4.7.2 states, the doctrine that Srila Prabhupada desired to continue to act as Diksha Guru after his departure from this world and did not desire any of his disciples to give Diksha in succession after him is a dangerous philosophical deviation. Rtvikism directly goes against the principle of Parampara itself of successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, which sustains the pure teachings and practices of Krishna consciousness. This principle has been established by Krishna and is upheld by all Vaishnava Acharyas. Indeed, it is accepted by all followers of Vedic culture. Rtvikism is thus an extreme deviation. It is utterly erroneous to espouse it, deluding and misguiding to teach it, and blasphemous to attribute it to Srila Prabhupada. No one who espouses, teaches, supports in any way, or practices Rtvikism can be a member in good standing of ISKCON. This is the law which we will be discussing today, whether it is really legitimate or not. Let us take a closer look at this law. The first sentence of this law hinges on the desire of Srila Prabhupada rather than on the order of Srila Prabhupada. As per the GBC, Rtvikism is a doctrine which claims that Srila Prabhupada did not desire that his disciples give Diksha in succession after him. In fact, this law states, number one, Rtvikism is a doctrine. Number two, the doctrine claims that Srila Prabhupada desired to continue to act as Diksha Guru after his departure from this world. And number three, the doctrine claims that Srila Prabhupada did not desire that his disciples give Diksha in succession after him. So you see, this first sentence of the ISKCON law banning the Rtvik system of initiations depends on the desire of Srila Prabhupada. It is not hinging on the order of Srila Prabhupada. Now, let us look at each of these three statements from the first sentence of the ISKCON law. The first statement is that Rtvikism is a doctrine. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the word doctrine is defined as a principle or position or the body of principles in a branch of knowledge or system of belief. In this case, we can assume that the ISKCON law uses the word doctrine in the sense of the position in the system of belief. In other words, Rtvikism is a position taken on a belief without any evidence or basis. What is the reality? The reality is that there is no belief or doctrine called Rtvikism. Such a doctrine simply doesn't exist. Why? Because the Rtvik system of initiations is a system of initiations which was ordered to the GBC to be implemented in ISKCON by Srila Prabhupada in his July 9, 1977 directive based on a GBC meeting with Srila Prabhupada on May 28, 1977. As we have explained in our earlier videos, when Srila Prabhupada's health was failing in May of 1977, Srila Prabhupada on the 22nd of May asked his disciples to prepare for the worst and called all the GBCs to Vrindavan to ask him any directions they needed for the future after his disappearance. In response, 18 out of the 23 GBCs at that time assembled in Vrindavan on 28th of May, and they drew up 5 questions to ask Srila Prabhupada. One of those 5 questions was how initiations would be conducted in ISKCON in the future, particularly when Srila Prabhupada was no longer with us. In response, Srila Prabhupada said he would recommend a few devotees to act as Ritviks, which he did on July 9, 1977. So, the GBC asked for an order from Srila Prabhupada about how initiations would be conducted after his disappearance, and Srila Prabhupada issued the order on July 9, 1977 that initiations would be conducted by Ritviks, representatives of the Acharya. The initiated devotees would be Srila Prabhupada's disciples. The GBC asked Srila Prabhupada for an order and Srila Prabhupada gave it. Hence, the Rtvik system of initiations on behalf of Srila Prabhupada is a direct order from Srila Prabhupada. It is not a doctrine, it is not a belief. There is nothing called Rtvikism. There is no doctrine of Rtvikism. Such a doctrine simply doesn't exist. The term Rtvikism and claiming that it is a doctrine are simply figments of imagination meant to deceive innocent devotees. Now, the second statement of the ISKCON law, that the doctrine claims that Srila Prabhupada desired to continue to act as a Diksha Guru even after his departure from this world. As we have explained, the July 9th directive from Srila Prabhupada was a direct order. It was not a desire. What is the difference between desire or intent and order? Srila Prabhupada explains this in this conversation recorded in San Diego on 29 June 1972.
So far designation is concerned, the spiritual master authorizes every one of his disciples. Sure. But it is up to the disciple to carry out the order, able to carry out or not. It is not that spiritual master is partial. Yes. He designates one and rejects other. Yes. He may do that. If the other is not qualified, he can do that. Yes. But actually his intention is not like that. Sure. He wants that each and every one of his disciples become as powerful as he is, or more than that. That is his desire. Just like father wants every son to be as qualified or more qualified than the father. But it is up to the student, up to the son, to raise himself to that standard. Yes, I understand. If you are incapable of raising yourself to the standard of becoming spiritual master, that is not your spiritual master's fault, that is your fault. He wants, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Amar Aggay Guru Haiya. By my order, every one of you become a guru.
In this conversation, Srila Prabhupada explains that Guru's desire or intent is that all his disciples should become Guru. But then, the Guru also evaluates his disciples to see whether they are qualified to be Guru or not. If the disciple has not been able to elevate himself to the level of the Guru will not order or designate the disciple as a Guru. Although the Guru desires that his disciples should become Guru, he will order only a disciple who is qualified to become Guru. Guru will not order a disciple to become Guru if he is not qualified. So, the disciple cannot become Guru even if the Guru desires so, unless the Guru orders him to become Guru. Hence, the order of the Guru determines whether the disciple can become Guru or not. The desire of the Guru does not determine whether disciple becomes Guru or not. Now, with this understanding, if we look at the July 9 directive, was the July 9 directive an expression of a desire of Srila Prabhupada, or was it an order? Undoubtedly, it was a direct order, not just some expression of some desire. Hence, the statement of the ISKCON law that Srila Prabhupada desired that he will continue to give Diksha after his departure from this world is false. Srila Prabhupada did not desire this. He ordered this, that he will continue to give Diksha after his departure from this world, as is evident from the May 28th meeting of the GBC with Srila Prabhupada. If you have not watched our video analyzing the May 28th meeting, please do watch it for a clear understanding about it. Now comes the third statement of the first sentence of the ISKCON law, that the Rtvik doctrine states that Srila Prabhupada did not desire his disciples to become Diksha Gurus at all in succession after him. This statement is again utterly false, because we do acknowledge that Srila Prabhupada mentioned in several places that he wants all his disciples to become Guru, to become Acharya, and that he is waiting for it. So it is abundantly clear that Srila Prabhupada did desire that all his disciples should become Diksha Guru in succession after him. But as we have already seen, that desire of the Guru has to be followed by an evaluation of the disciples, whether they are qualified to become Diksha Guru, and subsequently it has to be followed by an order, specific order from the spiritual master for that disciple to become Diksha Guru. No such order exists from Srila Prabhupada for his disciples to become Diksha Gurus next in succession. In fact, in the May 28 GBC meeting with Srila Prabhupada, the GBC asked him how initiations would be conducted in ISKCON, particularly when he was no longer with us. Srila Prabhupada responded that he would recommend some devotees to act as officiating Acharya or Ritviks. Then the GBC went on to ask Srila Prabhupada what was the relationship between the Ritviks and the devotees receiving initiation. The GBC then erroneously recorded Srila Prabhupada's response in their minutes, stating that Srila Prabhupada had said that he would appoint some devotees who would initiate, or rather he would appoint several devotees who would initiate their disciples, and that Srila Prabhupada would be their grand spiritual master. Although the GBC made many errors and assumptions in this resolution, it is a fact that they recorded that Srila Prabhupada would appoint several devotees to give Diksha. They did not record that Srila Prabhupada desired that all his disciples should become Diksha Gurus in succession. What did they record? They recorded that Srila Prabhupada would appoint Diksha Gurus. The resolution speaks of an order, not a desire. And where is that appointment? Where is that order? That order never came because the GBC wrongly assumed that Srila Prabhupada was going to issue such an order. In reality, Srila Prabhupada said on May 28th that he would appoint only Ritviks, not Diksha Gurus in succession. And hence, Srila Prabhupada on July 9, 1977 issued the order for Ritviks and not Diksha Gurus. So now, let us look once again at the ISKCON law. The first sentence says, the doctrine that Srila Prabhupada desired to continue to act as Diksha Guru after his departure from this world and did not desire any of his disciples to give Diksha in succession after him is a dangerous philosophical deviation. When we look at this law now, it is clear that this law makes assumptions which are all false. There is nothing called Rtvikism. Rtvik system of initiations is not an ism, not a doctrine. It is an order by Srila Prabhupada. We don't claim that Srila Prabhupada desired to give Diksha after his disappearance. Instead, we claim Srila Prabhupada ordered it. We don't claim that Srila Prabhupada did not desire that his disciples should become Diksha Gurus in succession. Our stand is that Srila Prabhupada did not order his disciples to become Diksha Gurus. Instead, Srila Prabhupada ordered the Rtvik system of initiations on his behalf, particularly for the time when he is no longer with us. Clearly, this first sentence of the ISKCON law is riddled with errors of facts and is misleading. Now, let us look at the second sentence of the law. The second sentence says, Rtvikism directly goes against the principle of Parampara itself of successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, which sustains the pure teachings and practices of Krishna consciousness. So, in this sentence, the GBC is claiming that the principle of Parampara is that successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus sustain the pure teachings and practices of Krishna consciousness. In other words, what they are saying is, the Parampara is sustained by successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus. We have a detailed video on what constitutes Parampara, and if you wish to know more about it, you can watch that video. However, briefly speaking here, Srila Prabhupada said in his letter to Dinesh, written on October 31, 1969, that disciplic succession means to accept the disciplic conclusion. In another letter to Dayananda Prabhu on 12th of April 1968, Srila Prabhupada said that there are big gaps in the Parampara. These gaps don't matter because Parampara consists of prominent acharyas who passed on the disciplic conclusion without any change. So we can see that consistently Srila Prabhupada defined Guru Parampara or disciplic succession not as a succession of Diksha Gurus, but of passing on the disciplic conclusion as it is. Hence, this sentence of ISKCON law which states, Rtvikism directly goes against the principle of Parampara itself of successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, which sustains the pure teachings and practices of Krishna consciousness. This assertion of the ISKCON law is also completely full of erroneous assumptions, not in line with Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Now we come to the third sentence in the ISKCON law. What does this third sentence say? The third sentence states, the principle, this principle has been established by Krishna and is upheld by all Vaishnava Acharyas. The GBC here claims that their principle of successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus sustaining the Parampara has been established by Krishna. They are probably referring to verses 1 and 2 of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which states, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham avyayam. As per these two verses, you may be aware, after describing how Krishna spoke this knowledge to the sun god Vivaswan, Vivaswan in turn repeated it to Manu, who in turn did the same to Ikshvaku, etc. Krishna says, Evam Parampara Praptam, that this is the way of the Parampara. So the GBC is apparently saying that this means that Krishna is saying that the Parampara is sustained by succession of Diksha and Shiksha Gurus. However, in the purport to the second verse of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that the original knowledge has now been lost, Sakaleneha yogo nashta parantapa, Srila Prabhupada says, as soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motives of unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to re-establish the disciplic succession. 5,000 years ago, it was detected by the Lord himself that the disciplic succession was broken, and there he declared that the purpose of the Gita appeared to be lost. So here, contrary to the claim by the GBC in the ISKCON law that Lord Krishna has established the principle that Parampara is sustained by successive Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the Parampara is sustained by retaining the original purpose of the Gita, not by successive Diksha Gurus. There is no mention by Prabhupada of the need for successive Diksha Gurus to sustain the Parampara. In fact, in the letter to Dayananda Prabhu on 12th of April 1968, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna has mentioned only 3 names in the Parampara after Ikshvaku. For millions of years, the Parampara continued unbroken after these 3 Acharyas without the need for successive Diksha Gurus. Further, Srila Prabhupada in Rajavidya chapter 5 said that even in the presence of Vyasadeva, Lord Krishna mentioned that the Parampara was broken. Vyasadeva was a Diksha Guru, and he was giving Diksha at the time when Lord Krishna spoke verse 2 of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, saying that the Parampara was lost. So Parampara can be lost even if there is a Diksha Guru giving Diksha. And Parampara can continue even in the physical absence of the Diksha Guru, as long as the purpose of the Gita is not distorted. So we see here how the first 3 statements of the ISKCON law banning the so-called doctrine of Rtvikism is completely flawed and full of factual errors, while philosophically also deviating from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, which poses serious questions on the GBC. In this law, as we have seen, since Srila Prabhupada's teachings are getting distorted, isn't the GBC breaking the Parampara by this law banning Srila Prabhupada's July 9th order? By basing it on assumptions which are scattering the actual purpose of Srila Prabhupada's July 9th order, isn't the ISKCON law on posthumous Rtvik doctrine stopping the Parampara? Those are questions which we leave it to the viewer to chew on. As far as the ISKCON law goes, apart from the first 3 sentences, the rest of the sentences are irrelevant. Hence, the ISKCON law outlawing Srila Prabhupada's order, Srila Prabhupada's July 9th order to implement Rtvik system of initiations, particularly for the time after its disappearance, this ISKCON law is a flawed law and hence it is illegitimate. Hare Krishna. Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.